I was at an SF Weekly party one time, and this guy was like, "Hey, can I get you a beer?" I said, "No, sorry, man, I don't drink." And he goes, okay, well, are you in AA?" And I go, "No." He goes, "Are you sober? Did you have an addiction problem?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "You self-righteous motherfucker." And he starts yelling. He stands up from his bar stool. "You think you're better than everyone, blah, blah, blah." And I was just like, I was really taken aback. And he was kind of like, he's probably like 45 or something like that. And I was like 22. And he's yelling. And I said, "Hey, man, calm down. And he kept going. Then I said, "Look, dude, if you don't shut up, I'm going to whoop your ass in front of all of your colleagues at work."
What's up, guys? I'm Zach, your host of the Auxoro podcast, where we bring you face-to-face with music artists, athletes, entrepreneurs, doctors, designers, and other interesting humans in a show that dives deep into the story beyond the surface. If you love keeping up with Auxoro, we have a newsletter sent out twice a month with all of our latest content, as well as other articles, podcasts, books, and advice that we find helpful. I'm constantly scrounging the internet for things to improve my life, and I would love nothing more than to be able to share the things that have helped me with you. Go to auxoro.com and join over 1,000 others by subscribing to the newsletter. The link is also in the podcast description. This episode is brought to you by The Aux. The Aux is a short-form podcast produced by Auxoro, bringing you a daily dose of uncensored wisdom to jumpstart your life. 5-minute episodes, no bullshit, no topic off limits. We explore things like fashion, porn, relationships, meditation, and more. You can subscribe to this podcast by searching The Aux, AUX, wherever you listen to podcasts, or by visiting the link in the description. Today on Auxoro, I speak with Matt Sancombe and Bill Conway, the founders of The Hard Times, a satire website focused on punk news that has since added a video game section called The Hard Drive. According to thehardtimes.net, The Hard Times started in late 2014 with just a few punk kids, comics, and friends. In this conversation, we cover everything from the inception of The Hard Times to jerking off to what makes good satire. This was absolutely a wide-ranging conversation, and make sure to stay tuned until the end for some scandalous stories about Matt's food delivery days. I had a blast with this one. I'm excited for you guys to listen to it. So without further ado, here is our conversation with Matt and Bill of The Hard Times. So what was your argument on bone density?
No, it's a Joe Rogan reference, just to guys who are always talking about trans and wrestlers, like weightlifting, all those records that get broken. Come on, man. You have a podcast. Don't pretend like you don't know what you're talking. Come on. Everyone knows. Bone density. You haven't heard the bone density argument?
I've heard the bone density argument, not as much from Joe Rogan. I forget who was. It might have been the Monday Morning podcast with Bill Burr, because he gets angry about a lot of similar things.
That makes sense. Yeah. I love Bill Burr, man.
But I saw a clip of Joe Rogan talking about the women's, I guess it would be trans females beating up females in mixed martial arts.
Rogan's very upset about that. Yeah.
He is.
Bill Burr is one of my favorite comics.
What do you think about his latest special?
I liked it a lot. Did you see it, Bill?
No, I haven't watched a special in a while.
Oh, man. I love Bill Burr. I thought his new special was great. I forget what the joke was, but there was one point where he like knocked over the microphone, and it's like, "You're done. You're canceled." Yeah, Bill Burr. I think he has 5 specials, maybe 4.
He has a few,
and I think I loved 1, 2, and then I think it was the third one. I didn't really love it that much, but his last one, I'm a really big fan of that one.
Paper Tiger.
Yeah, Paper Tiger.
I love him because he gets visibly angry on stage, but not in a contrived sort of way. Like, you can tell that he's actually fuming while he's talking about what he's talking about. He's like tapping into the anger.
Did you hear him on Conan O'Brien's podcast?
I don't think I did.
It was funny because Conan was like, got scared. It sounded like because Bill Burr was just like ranting, and then Conan would just be like, "That is the voice of Bill Burr, not Conan O'Brien, not endorsed." It was really funny.
That is funny. For people that are not familiar with the hard times, I figured it would be a good start to go through the wonderful bio that you guys have on the website, which I like so much. And it reads, "The Hard Times is a very real punk news site that you should not question. Just absorb the information as truth and move on. The historic Satire site was founded in December of 1976 by a group of punk and hardcore kids from all different subgenres." What made you want to go back in time to 1976 and create the Hard Times?
That's a real story, man. I don't know what you're talking about.
That is a real question.
I want to say I'm really happy to be on your podcast, but at the same time, I've been on a lot of shows today, and I had the best haircut on each one of these shows, but now I don't, and yours is better than mine. It's really upsetting.
We have clippers in the bathroom if you want to go fuck up my hair. I'll let Bill do it. I give consent for him to fuck up my hair with the clippers on.
Matt's going to have to take the lead there because, I mean, I had a similar haircut to Matt until I decided it's got to all go anyway. But he has been talking about all day after every interview. He's like, whew, dodged another bullet there. I had the best haircut in the room. So this is really tough for him right now. I can see that he's actually visibly uncomfortable.
I feel the I don't know what it is, the follicle tension in the
it's jealousy,
in this space right now. Yeah.
That description, you're supposed to put on that it's all satire and that they're based on fictional characters or something like that. But that's our version of that. We wrote that's really early on.
Yeah.
So, that's when we were creating the website 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So
how does that work with the legality of satire? Because I noticed that sometimes names are used and sometimes they're not. Is there any sort of, I'm sure there are legal ramifications that you have to navigate, or whether someone's a well-known figure or you're making fun of maybe someone that's not as well-known. How does that work?
Yeah, I actually got a journalism degree at SF State, and I took a class called Media Law and Ethics. I think the professor's last name was Wagner, and he was, it was Wagstaff. That's right.
Yeah, glad we got that detail locked down.
Wagstaff.
Anyways, he walked me all the way through it, and I still call him sometimes and ask him about it. But in general, I kind of, satire is pretty well protected. It doesn't matter if you use someone's real name, as long as it's satirical, it's usually fair use, which gives us a lot of leeway. And then the other thing that gives us leeway is that we're not a real corporation and we don't have an HR department, and I don't care. So we actually got a cease and desist letter recently that we ignored.
That must have felt really good to ignore a cease and desist letter.
Yeah, we rip them up, send them on over. It's fun.
So speaking, I'm looking forward now to getting our so hopefully we can get to the point where people are sending our podcast cease and desist letters because we're breaking some legal ramifications.
Here's what you guys got to do. You have to go
what do we need to do?
You have to go after Floor Trends magazine.
Yeah, they're very litigious over at Floor Trends magazine.
Floor Trends magazine.
Yeah.
So we wrote a headline. Do you remember the headline?
Yeah, it's NoFX's Linoleum wins Floor Trends magazine's best song for 25th year in a row is the headline. And they emailed saying we're creating brand confusion, that we're using their copyrighted images and that we need to stop doing this. And they did not understand that we were a joke.
Has anyone ever sent you a satirical email back to the satire that you wrote about them?
No, typically people aren't that bright. No, they wouldn't do that.
Yeah, people are dumb,
we mostly get cease
myself.
and desist. Sometimes we get very angry emails. I got a really angry email from a guy who played an alien ant farm. Why did you write that? That's not true. My band members and I would never do that. 10 minutes go by. I don't respond. And another email comes up. Someone filled me in. It's okay.
Yeah, I feel like that must happen a lot. I'm sure you guys get messages from people all the time where they get sent an article from someone who may not know the premise of the site, and then they think it's true, and then they get angry for whatever reason, and then it comes back to you, and then you constantly have to explain, like, listen,
I don't explain. I don't like explaining. So
a lot of people in the comment sections of articles will be like, oh, this is, like, how could this happen? And then one of the people that knows it tells him it's a joke. And then that person ultimately says, well, satire should be funny, as if that's going to burn us so hard that we don't care that you didn't understand it the first time. And now you've been informed and you look like an idiot online.
We have a freelance contributor. His name is Louis
Aronowitz.
Nailed it. I can't say his last name. And he made...
It's a legal thing. He can't say
it's
his
a
last
non-disparagement
name.
agreement. He made a whole album about this new book that we put out. And there's a song on there that goes through the reactions that people have. What's that song called?
Oh, I don't know.
I think it's called I Thought This Was Satire. Or this was supposed to be satire.
Yeah,
and
it's on Spotify. So
it goes on
listen.
Spotify. If you type in the Hard Times book band, it will pop up.
When people say this is supposed or satire is supposed to be funny, they're probably so proud of themselves. Like they're the first people ever to say that.
They don't know how bad it hurts. If they knew how bad it hurts, they wouldn't say it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It takes them a while to type it out because one hand's patting themselves on the back while the other's typing it. So it takes them a little while. But yeah, it cuts us to the core each time.
That and too soon. Too soon is really rough to deal with. Really hurts.
So speaking of journalism and Matt having gotten a journalism degree, I was reading that a pivotal point in your life was when you wrote an article about a man who had sex with a dolphin.
Yeah.
How did that happen, and what did that do to change your outlook on what you wanted to do in the journalism sphere, satire sphere?
Made me realize I wanted to have sex with a dolphin, and that's
how's that going
what
so
I want
far?
to talk to you guys about today.
That's banned.
I'm glad
from
we're getting the
SeaWorld.
inside scoop.
His name was Malcolm J. Brenner, and I was
The dolphin.
The dolphin's name was, I think, Lucy. He wrote a book about it, and he was emailing people trying to get interviews, and he wanted to do a phone interview with SF Weekly where I was working as a freelancer. I had interned there previously, and my editor said, why don't you call this person up and interview him? I said, I should, but I think it'd be funny if I met him in person. And so I met him at this hotel. I remember texting him being like, I'm here. And he goes, okay, I'm coming downstairs. I'll be the guy in the red fuzzy sweatshirt.
Having sex with a dolphin.
Yeah, I'll be the guy fucking the dolphin in the lobby.
Holy shit, dude. When he came down that elevator and he walked into the lobby, it was 100% clear he was the guy who fucked the dolphin. There was no need to give the detail about the red sweater. Like you
weren't waiting for him to walk up and say like, hey, or wave a hand or something. You were just like, that's the dolphin fucker. Yeah.
You didn't have to read the book. This guy was a dolphin fucker through and through, right? And I interviewed him, and the thing went crazy viral. You know, they actually made a documentary film. Someone read my article and made a documentary film about him.
Did they ever ask you to be in the documentary?
Nope.
What the fuck?
For the fucking royalties. Anyways, I saw the article just go around the world. I was watching the share counter, and I was like really excited by it. But I had went there. I had taken the photo. I had written the intro and done the interview, and I got paid $35. And, you know, the publisher of the magazine had called me and said, this is really great. And my editor called me and said, can you please do another one, a follow-up? It's the biggest article of the year for us. And I thought, it just feels so good to do that and have people appreciate your work. But at the same time, I didn't get a bonus for the fact that my article went all the way around the world a bunch of times. And so I thought, how hard could it really be just to be the guy who owned the website? If I'm creating the content, why don't I just own it? And that's when I really started to think about maybe owning a comedy website.
So originally, before like the Hard Times existed, Matt had spent like, I don't know, 6 or 7 months seeking out people that have fucked exotic animals. And when he wasn't able to get somebody, he went to plan B, and that's the Hard Times. That's where it really
Which is why technically the Hard Times does own several domain names related to animal fuckery, exotic animal, you know what I mean? All that sort of stuff. That was the original plan.
It's easier than you think to run into people who fuck exotic animals, because that sounds like a subreddit that you would just...
Quarantine one,
yeah,
maybe.
Or quarantine subreddit that you just like stumble into on a Reddit rabbit hole one day.
That's why I wanted to come on the podcast today. I wanted to advocate for the release of the subreddit Furry Friends. The way the Reddit moderators have been treating us is unconstitutional.
That might be a different legal subreddit because for people dress up as furries and then
here's what I want to know.
Each other. Furry community is going to now send me a cease and desist letter.
Whatever happened to free speech? Whatever happened to free speech?
It's going out the window.
God, this was America.
No, but I feel like being in the satire space and comedy in general, a lot of jokes are under attack, and people laugh at everything until it comes back to a group that they're associated with or a group that they're actually in or advocate for. And so it's like you can make fun of everyone else until it gets back to me, or until it gets back to a group that people see as victims.
It's not only is it under attack, it's a physical attack. And we built some trenches and we've been sitting in them waiting for we're gonna do a huge counterattack eventually. I don't know. Bill's a comic. I'm not really a comic. I write troublemaking stuff on the internet and I don't really care what happens after it goes out.
I think there are comedians that are out there that, will talk about how I can't say anything that I find funny. A lot of times those comedians just aren't funny, and they're just saying something provocative for the sake of doing that and then blaming the bad premise on the fact that the audience was offended when they could have just been like, that was a miss, But then, it's... there's certain things like you look back in the history of comedy, like there's certain things I'm sure comedians would want to not have done as their material that people laughed at the time. It's like, that didn't age well, but I don't think comedy is under attack as much as some people think it is when you actually do it. I just think there's a lot of comedians that are just bitter about maybe not getting where they want to be and kind of turn around and blame it on that.
So they're kind of using it as an excuse or a crutch because they're not where they want to be.
I think that's part of it. And then, if you look at recently, like Shane Gillis thing, it's like, he did a bad impression that he probably didn't find funny anyway. But then, that shit blew up, because of that. But I don't think that was part of his act that he was that wasn't in his SNL audition, I'm sure. But either way,
if it was, he should find better audition material. I thought that was kind of him riffing on a podcast and someone dug that up. So it wasn't like a polished thing he was trying to present. It was just like, he was talking for 3 hours and someone cut out a 30-second thing.
I thought it was funny how it seemed like he didn't want to say it. And his friend was like, come on, man.
Yeah, the other
just say it, dude.
You got that good bit. Yeah. Come on, tell me the stuff about the noodles,
I'm going to
man.
send this to SNL 10 years from now.
Exactly.
Yeah, the other guy seemed a lot worse than him. Like his friend seems like a piece of crap.
I think, the people who only do comedy that's just like, that gets more clapping than laughter, super safe stuff, and all they care about, they think that the comedy's got like one rule. It's like, don't punch down. And as long as you're not punching down, then you should have a Netflix special. Come on, here we go. Those people are horrendously unfunny. And then on the other spectrum, I actually think that the people who take all they are as provocative and they just try to be edgy and they just complain like, oh man, these people are ruining comedy. Those people are actually really unfunny too. And so I like the people who are in between or who go back and forth and have some original observations and takes. Like one of the comics who I really like right now is Tim Dillon. I think he's really fucking funny and he'll do offensive stuff, but it's not just to be offensive. That's kind of the take that I like a little bit more than... I do feel like a lot of people use that excuse as a crutch. And I feel like it's the same on the other side, is they use just like woke politics to get approval rather than being funny. So there's a lot of crutches out there.
Yeah. Well, you can see it on talk shows when you have the same monologue that repeats over and over. You could literally just flip through whatever, who's on talk shows now. I've been watching them forever. Conan, Colbert, Trevor Noah. And it's like, you could almost guess what they're going to say about Trump or whatever politics. Like they're all pulling from the same well. And it also goes back to what I think makes your website so funny. And I've been on a hard times bender the last week and
it's great.
Thank you for that. But
did we radicalize you? What's your like? Yeah, a week ago I just started reading a lot of hard times.
I'm converted.
All of a sudden, I think we should kill all the emo kids. I don't know what the fuck happened. Yeah.
So I'm self-admittedly I'm not from the punk or hardcore scene at all, and going through that, everything is so different. Like you're using a bunch of different tools to make things funny, which I think is different from a lot of mainstream comedy today, where you're kind of just hitting the same thing over and over again. And if people don't laugh, then it's like, well, why aren't you laughing at this? You should laugh at that.
This guy thinks we're better than Conan.
Yeah, he's not wrong. He's not wrong.
You could talk to him about it on his podcast.
I approve, man. I approve this message. I don't really watch any of those late night shows. Do you?
No, I don't have the patience for those sort of. I think like old Conan, you could put a best of clips together, and like, there's some great stuff. But
I grew up on that old Conan.
Yeah,
I listen to his podcast now. I love Conan O'Brien. I do think that there has been a rounding down and a smoothing out of popular culture to the point where if you don't 100% fit that general ideology, then you kind of get hammered down a bit. You know, I think in journalism, that's actually particularly strong too, is there's like a really big echo chamber because I came from the journalism world. Like kind of like a critique that I see on Twitter a bit that I actually kind of agree with is like people like make fun of people with blue check marks. And I think that's actually, I think there's some legitimacy there because it's kind of like a groupthink ideology where they all believe in the same things. And if you stick out just a little bit, you really get hammered. I saw Hannibal Buress got in a lot of trouble on Twitter the other day because he's a landlord.
Why were people angry that he's a landlord?
Well, because he's because they're communists. I mean, right? That's pretty much it.
He seems like a pretty chill landlord. If you told him, hey, listen, I'm 7 months behind on my rent, is that okay? He'd be like, yeah, man, that's cool.
I don't know. Yeah. I feel like on Twitter, if you're not literally part of the communist army, then you're probably going to get in trouble.
That's why you just got to stay off Twitter. Yeah. Just don't use it. That's all. Yeah, no, there's a weird thing about that. The group, like, I think that's part of the reason like the Hard Times has worked is we don't ask anybody's politics before they get into our like virtual writers room. And so you gotta, everybody has a blank slate. Now, if you were an asshole in our, pitch group, then you get kicked out. But everybody comes from, we don't have like, hey, you need to be these 10 things before we'll even let you pitch a headline to us. So we get a bunch of different voices that way. And I think we're able to pull from a lot of different experiences, and it's what's really helped us out.
Something I really hope is that when people see like our logo and our name, they don't think of one dominant, super strong ideology that doesn't accept other ideologies. I've seen a lot of media companies go down that route. Like Vice, for example. I used to write for Vice, and Vice was like started by punk kids, and it had that youth culture vibe. And now it seems like it's more like the values are more aligned with a mom who really wants to complain to the PTA. I saw them like really go after Dave Chappelle. It's like, can you believe Dave Chappelle told a joke? It's like, what am I reading?
Well, I was amazed at how arrogant. I think it was a Vice headline, but they said something along the lines of, "You don't need to watch Dave Chappelle's next special."
Yeah,
and I think it's okay if you're going to review something and say, "I don't want to watch it." That's fine. Shit on something all you want, but to say that you don't need to waste your time with this special. You don't have to check out this site. You don't have to listen to this podcast to just assume that how you're feeling is the way that everyone else feels. And if you disagree with them, then you're
a bigot,
a bitch, or
you're
something
a horrible person.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's very bizarre, man. But when I read that article, all I wanted to do was watch Dave Chappelle.
Yeah,
so I watched
you tweeted about it. That was hilarious. You're like, all my brain does is say, now I need to watch that special. Or Dave Chappelle released a new special.
I think because I came from the punk scene, I have this weird thing where, like in the early days of punk, there was like these articles that would come out in major newspapers. There was like punk cult scares local residents and all that sort of like, anything that's been demonized really heavily, I actually find myself kind of attracted to it. I like bad guys. I think they're funny. I think they're charismatic. Like when I used to watch pro wrestling, I used to always like the heels. So when a very big institution like Vice goes like, Dave Chappelle don't do that. It's dangerous. Don't watch it. I go, where can I watch it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going back to getting the different perspectives on your site and not being able to be pinned down for one ideology. I saw you guys said that you can't teach you can't teach a journalist to be a punk rocker, but you can teach a punk rocker basic journalism skills.
Yeah, it's Bill.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it comes to. Like, I've been going to shows since I was, in my early teens, but I don't have any writing experience. But, you can figure that out. But you can't just have, tell somebody that's 27 years old about basement shows and stuff like that. So having that experience is much more valuable. A lot of our writers are not, they're probably college dropouts. They don't have any comedy aspirations. They're just band kids that want to write a funny joke. And we just kind of give them the template of, hey, this is how you write a satire article, and we'll help you along in the editorial process. And hopefully it turns out funny. And once it is funny, we'll publish it on the website. But a lot of the first drafts I'll get are garbage as far as the writing, but maybe the jokes are there or the premises are there. But it's like, now we just got to fine tune this and make it, readable.
I'm actually really proud about that. I think all of our editors, or at least most of our editors, don't even have writing backgrounds. And a lot of our writers don't. It's just people who played in bands and stuff. It's starting to be a little bit more. There's some comedy people in there and stuff, but it's this really organic group of people. And we actually have a joke where when people apply to write for our website, they list off like, oh, I wrote for this comedy institution. We kind of go, yeah, what bands do you know? Because if you don't know a band, then we don't really want you around.
Well, and I saw to submit something for the website, you take a bunch of headlines and you ask people to not even write the article at first, which opens it up to people that may not be comfortable writing 1,000 words right off the bat or 500 words. And you can't be pinned down to a certain perspective if you have it open to that many people.
Yeah.
Which is why I like that so much.
We get thousands and thousands of people applying all the time. And we even have it now where if you want to write the headline, if you can get it past we kind of like this weird democratic open source sort of process. But if you can get it past that whole thing and you can't write or you don't feel like writing, Bill will write it for you.
Yeah, well, we'll put your name on the byline. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I don't need any credit for it. It's been the submission process also. It's like some people sometimes they'll just send us like 3 headlines. And you're like, you can't follow the simplest of instructions to do 10 headlines with that.
10, damn it.
Yeah, then it's one of those things like, this person might not be cut out for this in general. You know, like
we get a lot of submissions that straight up, it's like, we've never published something like this. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
This is an 18,000 word poem about Trump. That's not the submission process.
I think you're writing to the wrong website.
Yeah.
So how did you get into stand-up comedy, Bill?
So I was working in a warehouse in San Francisco. Actually, first time I did stand-up comedy was 4th grade talent show. Just decided, I'm going to do stand-up comedy. Told 2 great jokes. Got kicked off the stage.
Crowd was loving it.
You wouldn't believe how much they loved it. I mean, I can do. Matt, can I do the jokes?
Yeah, do the joke.
All right. So these 2 jokes, and then I got kicked off the stage by my 4th grade teacher, Mrs. Davis. All right. So guy goes into a toilet store. All right. Guy goes into a toilet store and says, "Hey, I need a new toilet." And the guy's like, "All right, we got a metal toilet, a wooden toilet, and a singing toilet." He's like, "All right, I'll take the metal toilet." Brings it back the next day, says, "I need a different toilet. My butt's too cold when I sit on this thing." All right, I'll take the wooden one. All right, so he comes back the next day. He's like, "I got splinters when I used it, so I guess I'll take the singing." Comes back the 3rd day, and the guy's like, "Oh, what's wrong with this one?" It was started singing the national anthem, and I had to stand up. Killer.
You wrote that when you were in 4th grade?
Yeah.
You wrote that
No,
joke.
I didn't write that. I was Carlos Menciaing this shit. These are stolen street jokes, all right?
So, Bill, but how did you follow that one up?
So here we go. 2 sons are inheriting their father's fortune. And the father says to him, one of the sons I should mention was a little hard of hearing.
Okay.
Yeah. So the father says, "Whoever brings me the most ping pong balls will get my vast fortune." First son comes back with 4,000 ping pong balls. And he's like, "Oh, that's a lot." Second son comes back with 2 giant balls. And he said, father's like, "What are these?" He said, "Ping pong balls." I thought you said King Kong's balls. Got kicked off the stage.
Your brother gets kicked off this podcast.
Yeah, I know. This is the sort of
the parents had to be loving it, though.
Yeah. Oh, the parents were horrified.
You're just ahead of your time.
Yeah,
You're ahead of your age.
They weren't ready for it.
King Kong balls, man. Comedy's under attack, dude.
Yeah,
you got kicked off stage.
It's the thing. So I've often had this. There was a line in the Sandtron that day that people weren't letting me have my freedom of speech.
It's like those kids that grow way too fast and they can't handle their bodies. That's like your sense of humor.
It's
just
exactly what it was.
Yeah.
It's very advanced. It is state advanced. But then my second appearance on stage was just, 18 years later. I took a small break because it was just one of those things like I've already done everything there is to do in stand-up comedy. I got kicked off the stage in 4th grade. That's the biggest thing at the Cape Cod Elementary School. But I was working in a warehouse and I was just listening to probably like the Monday morning podcast or something like that. And, people always ask, "Bill, how do you get into stand-up?" And like, "Just go to a fucking open mic." And I was like, "Right, just go to a fucking open mic." And so I went to this place in San Francisco called Brainwash, which was the longest running open mic in San Francisco for a long time. And just went there with the idea of like, I'm going to go sit in the audience a couple times. And if I know I'm not the worst person that goes on that stage that night, I'll go up next week. And I saw some of the worst comedy I've ever seen in my life. The least funny people, delusional enough to think they could actually do stand up. And I said, all right, I wouldn't be that bad. And I just hope I've inspired similar people since then, that they've gone to open mics and been like, as long as I'm not worse than that guy, then I will get up there.
How did the set go?
Let's see. It's tough to gauge since I went up second to last, and it was only talking to the host and the person working at Brainwash that was stacking stools on top of the counter.
So you got more one-on-one time, more personal engagement with audience members. Yeah, it was more of a connection.
Yeah, that's really what I was going for. But yeah, I can't tell you how it went because there was nothing there. I didn't forget my material. That was my only goal was to talk for the 3 minutes and not fuck up. Because that same night I had seen two guys go up and totally freeze and forget what they wanted to say. And I haven't seen it since that night. So it was like some weird message telling me to get out of there. But yeah, it's stand-up's been okay. I've did it in Portland for 6 years and now I'm in Los Angeles now. And so, yeah, it's going all right. Not too bad.
I feel like that's a good baseline to have when you first do something like stand-up comedy, to not forget. Because if you tell yourself, I imagine, because I've never done stand-up before, I need to crush it, or I need to be funny, then you're setting a standard for yourself. Mm-hmm. And usually when you do something the first time, it's the shittiest one you'll ever do.
Right. When people tell me like, oh, first time I did stand-up, I crushed. I'm like, no, you didn't. You're a crazy person. There's no way you did well. But maybe they did, but it was probably some wacky slap. Oh, actually, maybe they told the same jokes I told in fourth grade. So, because we all know those crush. I mean, singing toilet.
Actually, I'm not a stand-up, but I was telling so many bad jokes to my parents when I was young. They said, enough. We're sending you to comedy school. And they sent me to a comedy class when I was really young. And I remember they put me up on stage and we were supposed to read like these knock-knock jokes. And apparently I got back in the car after my first time and I told my mom, I'm not going to let anyone tell me how to tell a fucking joke. And then I refused to go to the class anymore.
How is your mom with that language?
I guess it never got any better. So I guess she dn't discipline me.
How old were you when she sent you to comedy class? What a weird punishment.
I probably was about 8 or 10, I think. I used to tell these horrible jokes. I still do. I made a book of them now. Yeah. I just used to tell these horrible jokes that had no punchlines. I just ramble.
And they thought this was a good use of their money.
Well, look, I'm not going to be on the fucking football team. What are they going to do? They have to send me somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, anything but comedy class.
They bought me a drum set later, and that one stuck.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
If you ever want to feel good about yourself, you can watch a video of Jerry Seinfeld forgetting his jokes on stage back in the day.
Man, Jeremy Kapowitz, he's one of our editors. He just did this viral Jerry Seinfeld bit. He went on stage and did Jerry Seinfeld doing jokes about his 17-year-old girlfriend. And it's all over the internet
it's
right
like
now.
It's 90s Jerry Seinfeld. So at that time, Jerry was dating
this is why we need the Joe
girl.
Rogan budget, so I can just have a projector and pull all this shit up. That would be wonderful.
Have you seen the Hard Drive, our video game section?
I have.
Yeah, that Jeremy runs
bigger,
that.
You said that's as big or bigger now.
Yeah, it's as big and it's growing. It will be bigger eventually. It just keeps growing. Punk kind of has like a limit. You know what I mean? But video games is like...
Well, you guys haven't run out of punk headlines in...
Well, we won't run out of headlines, 6 years? But we'll run out of people to pitch them to. Most people who are into punk and hardcore in the US have heard of us. They might not like us, but they've probably heard of us. Like we've reached most of our audience, but with hard drive and video gaming, there's still this huge world out there for us to grow.
Yeah,
so
I feel like there's more like, if you're thinking of a 12-year-old kid, there's more 12-year-olds getting into way deeper into gaming than they are into punk. It's a 10-to-1 ratio.
Any kid who plays Fortnite could be a hard drive reader, right? But hard times, we have to seek out these societal rejects.
I saw a crazy stat the other day that the video game industry is bigger than music, film, and TV combined in terms of revenue.
They sell it like Madison Square Garden just playing, World of Warcraft or whatever.
Yeah, and they get celebrities to show up and be on teams.
And the gamers are celebrities now too.
Yeah.
And if you look at the advertising spend each year in gaming, it's gone up for like the last 10 years. So next time you talk to us, Bill and I will be fucking...
we're going to be...
If I can talk to you guys.
No, you're always welcome,
if I'm allowed
man.
to sing.
Come on.
I saw Ninja was on Conan, I think, the other day.
Really?
Yeah, Ninja was on one of the talk shows that I don't watch. So now I guess I'm exposing my lie. Because I did watch one of the clips.
Yeah.
Was he a charming fella or was he a dud?
He was charming.
All right.
Doesn't Conan have a new format to his show, is what I heard?
Yeah, so he ditched the formal suit jacket. He rocks like either a leather jacket now or some sort of, I don't know what you call it, not a cardigan, but it's like a cloth jacket. And he sits a lot closer to people.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no table or anything in the middle. It's just kind of like a half-hour segment of talking, shooting the shit. And it's making me realize that I forgot my cool leather jacket. So I feel naked right now. But yeah, I liked it a lot. He said that, I think he talked about this on his podcast with David Letterman, that he always felt that the show was a little bit too long and that an hour was just, he wouldn't be able to pay attention fully for an hour. So how could he expect other people to?
Mm-hmm.
And I should now also cut down the length of my podcast too. I'm coming to realizations.
Podcasts are consumed far differently than
true,
television.
Podcasts, you think people like long ones sometimes?
I love listening to podcasts, and I can do other shit too, which is why I'll listen to it longer. But yeah, Conan was saying how he wasn't fully engaged, kind of felt like he was burning out, needed some switch in the routine. And I think the new segment, the half-hour segment, combined with his podcast outlet, seems like it's giving him some second wind.
Mm-hmm.
Seems a lot more enthusiastic about what he's doing. And with the traveling show too that he does with Jordan Shalansky, his assistant.
Oh, it's so funny. I love those. It's like Conan Broad, right?
Mm-hmm.
So funny. Yeah.
One of our writers actually is on Conan's staff. He's one of the digital guys over there.
John Danick.
Yeah, he's got a couple of bylines in the book, but
he was the one who got us sued by Floor Trends. Yeah, actually one of the things we did with Hard Times is a lot of people say that we're an Onion-like publication, but actually the format of our articles is far different than the Onion and anywhere else. And we kind of formulated that. Onion does a lot of just like one headline and a picture and no article body.
Mm-hmm.
And then they also do another one, which is a headline, picture, and then like this like AP news chunk that isn't even broken up into paragraphs. And then sometimes they do really long, like 1,800 word.
Well, those are the old ones. They don't even do those. There's not a single Onion article that's more than a paragraph at this point that I've seen in years.
What we do is we do about 300, 350 words, sometimes 400, and it's inverted pyramid news writing style. So it's like it's got a lead and it breaks all the way down to a kicker. It's something I learned how to do in journalism school.
This is a journalism background.
But Bill and I kind of put that together. We started this website and he had like the stand-up comedy background. I had the journalism background and the punk background. We mixed that all together. And I actually really like the format of our articles because it isn't that hour-long Conan show. It's the half-hour-long thing. Like if you see a Hard Times headline that you like and you click on it, there's a pretty instant reward. And you can be like, oh, that was great. I got another laugh. And then you're done. It's not like this big, long slog. Kind of like Raw, WWE, 3 hours long, too long. AEW, shorter, it's better. Okay.
Yeah, I like the short segments. People say that attention spans are decreasing. I don't know how true that is, but
Joe Rogan's the biggest podcast in the world.
Yeah, people will
like 3 hours.
People
long.
Listen to it for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Even if they're not listening to it all in one sitting, they're consuming, I assume, most, if not all of it, or else they'd probably cut down the length of the podcast. But I like the shorter bits because not everyone wants to listen to podcasts and not everyone wants the shorter material. So if you can kind of hit a happy medium and offer something kind of the best of both worlds.
Well, it's also funny because maybe your attention span is short when it's format that it's been done to death and it's a guy reading monologue jokes that are super first thought. Like, yeah, I can only stand this for 2 minutes. You know what I mean? But Joe Rogan, I think he lets some people talk that are very interesting and about topics that I don't know anything about. So if I'm cleaning my room or whatever, I might let that ride on for 2 or 3 hours. Bill, you don't listen to Rogan because it's too long, right?
No, I don't listen to Rogan because I can't stand Joe Rogan.
Why don't you like Joe
What do you
Rogan?
not like about him?
I just think he's annoying. That's all. I think he's
super likable.
I mean, I've been a fan of the UFC for a long time, and I am so glad he's not in the booth anymore. Like,
Really?
I
like him in the booth.
Oh, no. He is the worst at color commentary. Oh, my God. Give me DC and fucking Dominic Cruz. Yeah, give me those two guys all day with John Anik. Ooh,
I like when
that's
Dominic
the dream team.
Cruz and Rogan are in there and Dominic Cruz picks on Rogan.
Oh, yeah, because
subtext.
Because Rogan will always be like, this is the most grueling aspect of MMA, and Dominic Cruz is like, no, it's not.
You talking about leaning up against the fence?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a weird one.
What does Rogan need to improve on for his color commentary?
He has a lot of narratives that he seems to fall into. Like, that's this thing where when a fight is going on, if they're leaning against the cage, or like one guy's trying to just push on another guy, he's like, this is the most grueling aspect of MMA, but he doesn't. He does Taekwondo and stuff, but he doesn't fight MMA and
jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, but
and he hunts elk.
Yeah, he hunts elk. Does a lot of DMT.
Taught GSP how to do a spinning back kick. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
So then Dominic Cruz,
this is not endorsed.
The former champ Dominic Cruz was like, no, it's not, Joe. They're both resting right now, and sort of in like.
But then he acknowledged that. And he doesn't say
still
that
says
anymore.
it. No, he still says it a lot.
Well, fuck does Dominic Cruz know, huh?
Yeah, I don't know, just a former champ. But no, I just like the other guy's insights better. And
I like DC.
Yeah, DC's great. I like
DC.
But I've just never been a fan of Joe Rogan. I've never liked his comedy. Here's the thing. I got turned off to Joe Rogan when I watched one of his specials, and the first opening joke was about how his pubes are turning gray. And I was like, this joke's been done a million fucking times. Jesus Christ, it's boring.
How long ago was that?
I don't know, like 10 years ago, but that's enough for me.
Give it another shot.
No, not a chance.
I listened to almost every Rogan episode. I like Joe Rogan a lot.
Is that considered stealing a joke if something that's been done by so many people that's kind of just like accepted this is a generic joke, someone that's huge then does that in a special? Is that like Carlos Mencia type level, or does it have to be a very specific wording?
I think you can do similar premises, you have the gray pubes premise.
This is called hack, right?
Yeah, it's a bit hacky. And there's also like parallel thought. Like I don't automatically assume somebody's stealing something if two people are doing a similar premise, because I've seen that at all levels of comedy, like at an open mic. It's like, well, there's no way this person saw me do that joke 2 weeks ago. So they clearly have the same take about how baseball is boring, because, that's the sort of thing.
Can I tell you something about Joe Rogan?
You can.
I was writing a story for a magazine. I guess I won't name the magazine.
It was Floor Trends magazine.
It was about Milo Yiannopoulos had done a talk at UC Berkeley, and it turned into a riot. And I went and I interviewed a bunch of Antifa people and professors and police officers. And then I told my editors, well, I'm going to go talk to Milo too and get his viewpoint on it. And they said, well, give me 1 second. And they went and they talked to a bunch of senior editors there. And they said, okay, well, we're not going to give Milo
a platform.
Not going to give him a platform. Not going to give him the ink, because he's just doing it to raise his profile. It's why he starts the whatever. But I thought, I'm writing an article about this guy and I can't talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk to him. That's what I learned in journalism school. And like the next week, so my article came out, and people liked it, but the next week, Milo was on Joe Rogan. I'm not exactly sure if it was the next week, but later on, I saw Milo on Joe Rogan, and Rogan gave him that platform or whatever. And Milo ended up hanging himself on that platform. That was the big downturn for him, was because he started talking about this priest and some sex he had with an older man when he was younger. And he said that it wasn't traumatic for him. And then people started saying Milo was a pedophile and stuff, like, or endorsed pedophilia somehow. I got a little blurry on the details, but I thought it was really interesting that I went to journalism school and I learned something about getting both sides of a story. And then I was told by a major publication I couldn't do that. And then this comedian went and did that. And so I've actually admired a lot of Joe Rogan's ability to go and talk to interesting people and let them hang themselves if they want to, with their own actions and words. I felt like he was doing a better job at the thing I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, I like that he challenges people, Joe Rogan. I like that he doesn't, if something comes up that he doesn't agree with, he will kind of put the brakes on and say like, wait, let's go back to that and kind of dissect what you just said. Like you just talked about getting raped by a priest 20 years ago, and I don't know all the details. I've heard kind of like the general gist of it, but you can't just like gloss over that and be like, well, it wasn't that bad, and then go on to the next thing. At least he got into it. And Milo's interesting because he's one of those people that has, I guess, gotten canceled as much as you can. He's not allowed on any apps banking apps or social media. He still has his email list, and he's kind of like this untouchable person that people don't want to be associated with. But at the same time, wouldn't it be cool to interview Milo? And even if you would agree with nothing that he said, at least you would understand the way that he thinks a little bit more. Like if you spent an hour and a half with him sitting down, you would at least know how he thinks a little bit.
It's a two-sided coin, right? Because the fear is that you already know how he thinks and that he might convince other people to think like him. And it's a damaging thought process that he has. But
I think only if he convinces the host how he thinks, and he if he is able to convert the host and the host isn't as pushing back on things that he should be, then I think
Rogan
the listeners
doesn't push back that much. Rogan's pretty easygoing. He'll just, but I do like, I don't want to talk about these people all the time and not know what they're about. And I think it's sad sometimes that I have to go to Joe Rogan to let the people fucking talk. You know what I mean? All I hear is these crazy headlines about all these people. I remember the first time someone brought Milo up to me. I was getting my hair cut somewhere or whatever. And they're like, there's a Nazi coming to town to do a talk. And I was like, oh, really? That's crazy.
Looking out in the open Nazi.
There's a
That's
neo-Nazi
wild,
coming to town. That sounds horrible. And then I got the person's name. I remember looking him up later. I'm like, this guy's a neo-Nazi? That's pretty bizarre. I mean, he doesn't seem like a great guy, but he doesn't seem like Hitler. And it's weird how it's just I don't know. So I like Joe Rogan. I like the fact that I can see the bad guys on his platform and I can make up my own mind. And I don't have to just listen to a blogger explain it to me like I'm 3 years old and I can't make up any of my own decisions.
Yeah, I think with a lot of those guys, like to me, they come off as so fake to begin with that I don't want to hear like Milo was such a character to me in general. Like I felt like he was lying about what he was saying anyway. Like,
that was like when I thought he was like this like white supremacist or something like that. And I go, this guy's doing a weird character.
Yeah, like I think Ann Coulter isn't how she actually is. She just does it for television because she knows that
I hate Ann Coulter.
Yeah,
unbearable.
So if Ann Coulter was on Joe Rogan, you'd skip that one?
Was she the one that bombed on a roast recently, a Comedy Central roast, Ann Coulter?
I think it might have been like a couple years back, but she definitely, I do remember her having a large bomb moment where she, God, who was it? Maybe she was on the Caitlyn Jenner one or something. No, that was too recent. But yeah, she definitely...
She was on a roast, yeah. I forget which one it was. I think it was like Alec Baldwin.
It might have been Alec Baldwin. I heard the person who writes for the roast talk about how she had initially agreed to the jokes that he had put in front of her. Mm-hmm. And then as it got closer to the roast, she was kind of iffy on the jokes, but they still wanted her to be the villain on the roast. So they didn't want to say like, if you don't say these jokes, we're not going to let you on. And then when it got down to it, she said, I'm not going to use these jokes. I'm just going to go with what I wrote. And so she just...
Noted comedian Ann Coulter.
Yeah. Yeah. I decided to hold up her book for 5 minutes and talk about it. Instead of tell jokes written by someone whose job it is to make people laugh.
Yeah. And I feel like so many of those, like there's a lot of pundits that have that thing. Like, I mean, Alex Jones kind of admitted he was being a character.
Alex Jones is hilarious. They're the funniest guy in the world.
Yeah, it was Bill Hicks. But yeah, so those guys to me, like I don't personally, I don't need to hear. I ignore so much. Like my life, I try to isolate myself so I don't have to be bothered by goddamn anything. That's why I'm not on Twitter ever, because it's all stupid. I'm already stressed about enough shit. I don't need other morons telling me what to be stressed out about.
I'm still waiting to meet a real live Twitter person, someone that's Twitter personality matches their real life personality.
Oh, they don't exist. They don't exist. It's all fake. All those people are completely fake. Dude, you know what was an episode of Joe Rogan where he really pushed back on someone?
Can I interrupt? There was one person I saw on my Instagram feed lately.
Instagram's different. There are definitely Instagram thoughts that match their feed in real life.
This one was interesting. Like a very, very progressive person, but then they posted like a Morrissey thing. It's like, have you not gotten the memo about Morrissey? Like
that's the little excuse. He gets a pass some reason.
Yeah, like what the fuck? Like if he's a known bigot that is supporting super right wing, hate groups, but you're gonna post his lyrics in your Instagram story. Get the fuck out of here with that shit. But sorry, I was cut you off.
Rogan had an episode where he invited on Ben Shapiro, and he really took him to task over homophobia. And I thought that was really interesting because I think that they're friends too. And so Rogan like inviting him on his platform and just really like grilling him a bit. He doesn't usually do that. He's usually really laid back and people just like throw facts at him that are totally fake. And he goes, oh yeah, cool. But with Ben Shapiro, he came ready to go.
What was
I like Joe Rogan.
What were some of the things about homophobia that he was taking Ben Shapiro to town on?
Ben Shapiro was just trying to say like, oh, well, you know, it's exclusionary because religion is exclusionary naturally and that's just my right and blah, blah, blah. And Joe was just kind of trying to say like, why would you don't need to be cruel to people though. And it doesn't make any sense it's not harming you. Like, why do you want to take away rights of people who aren't affecting you? It was a pretty good episode. It wasn't like a laughing, entertaining episode, but it was just like Joe Rogan, I think he like just kind of took his friend to task, which was pretty interesting. So feel like most of his episodes are he invites someone on and he already agrees with them and he just like shares the platform with them. But this was someone where he like agreed with him on some things, but he obviously had a bone to pick with him about homophobia. It was an interesting episode.
It's always good when you can come at someone that you don't agree with and then be cordial with them after and still be friends, which I feel like does not happen as much.
I definitely think that's just the social media effect. Like we've all put ourselves into these bubbles. Like I worked with a guy at a warehouse in Portland who was way right wing and I'm far to the left. And we would often have discussions about things, but at the end of the day, we were still got along and we're still friends. But you know, like he was all about like, he was against net neutrality. And I was like, but why? Just because, you know, and like telling him like what it actually is. And then like, and when we came to an agreement where he's like, oh yeah, I guess, you know, you were right about that. Like not right, but he was just misunderstood from like the right-wing talking points he was hearing about net neutrality or whatever. But there was other social issues or whatever that we would never come to agreement on. But
I love when people like that, they have like their news is so different than the news that we read to the point where we were on NPR recently and we got this message from someone that said, like, I hope you're happy. NPR has blood on their hands and now you do too.
Just listen to your NPR interview. Very lame. NPR has blood on their hands. Go wash yours.
Because they interviewed some, what were they saying?
The funny part is that we're not at a point where we're just disagreeing with someone. We're at a point where people are so radicalized and different and in little echo chambers. We don't even know what they're referencing anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know why NPR has blood in their hands for this person, but I don't care. They're reading some weird website. I think it's so funny that NPR is controversial for you.
And also we hadn't actually promoted that we were on any NPR show yet. So this person was listening to NPR and heard our story and then decided to message us. So they were already tuned in to the most controversial, edgy station, low on the dial, NPR. So yeah, crazy. It is. That's why I don't get in arguments online because you're just yelling into the wind, you know?
Yeah, if someone's angry at NPR, like you can't be angry at NPR. They do these monotone intros that have and they give great information, nothing against NPR, but it's like as soon as that person opens their mouth, you know it's an NPR podcast.
Right. I can't think of something that's more down the center than NPR. Like it's, but I don't know. They got blood on their hands apparently.
And it's crazy too, because we only went on there to promote weapons of mass destruction being in Iraq and supporting the invasion. And I don't know why that's controversial. I'm joking. I'm guessing that's what happened.
Yeah, something from 18 years ago is still bothering this guy.
Well, if NPR has blood on their hands and then you did an NPR interview and now I'm having you on my show, that means I have blood on my hands now.
Covered in blood.
You're fucking canceled, bro.
Yeah, dude. I've been dreaming of this day, the getting canceled just to see how it feels, you know?
Do you ever think about sometimes how, like when you're trying to promote something, it's like, I wish people would just cancel me just so they talk about me. Just a little bit.
I mean, I'm nowhere at the level that you guys are, but I get anxious promoting stuff, like putting out podcast episodes. I wish that I could just record them and then they would go out into cyberspace and then not have to put any Instagram posts or Twitter. But like doing that just makes me anxious for some reason. I don't know.
I think it would be like weirdly freeing to be canceled. You just like live on an island. You'd be completely exiled. You have to change your name.
Wait, you think it'd be like freeing to be Louis C.K. right now?
No, Louis C.K. has to go back at it. He has to make money. I'm talking about being canceled so hard you change direction in your life. You just go work at like a scuba dive rental spot
Like in the book.
Bahamas. Yeah.
I don't know how that would work. I mean, I suppose if we got canceled, I'd just go back to working in a warehouse and then just, do that for the rest of my life like I was expecting anyway. So,
Do you think Hard Times Now or canceled Hard Times would be better?
Hard Times Now. I don't want canceled Hard Times. No.
I feel like it depends on your comeback too from getting canceled. Like if you're okay with being canceled and you just come to peace with, I don't have to put up a fight anymore. I'm just going to take my money and
we don't have any.
Yeah, that's the one thing. Is there's a lack of.
Even if you kind of just want to work in, go work in a warehouse and not be in the public eye on social media with 400,000 followers, and you were at peace with that, then I think that you would also be at peace with your life. But if you also had the urge to make a comeback and you weren't in a position where you could do that, or maybe you had to wait a year or two, like Louis C.K. I know is getting ready to go back out on the road.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
I think it also just depends on how talented you are. At the end of the day, people respect artists that are good at what they do, and people seem to have the ability to compartmentalize.
So we definitely shouldn't get canceled, then, right? Is what you're saying, because we're not talented enough to make the comeback.
Which is why I can't get canceled either.
So maybe we should just clarify there. Please don't cancel us. We have no money to take, and we don't have the talent to climb back up.
That's the takeaway here. It's
gonna be a problem.
And we try to be genuinely good people sometimes.
Speak for yourself, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I shoved a couple people off the sidewalk when we're walking over here. It's getting in my way. Don't look me in the eye.
I have a theory that I don't want to be on the right side of history. I only want to be on the cool side of history.
Which I still don't know what that means.
What if the right side of history is the cool side of history?
Hopefully it is. But I'm more concerned about being on the cool side. What it means is like there's a lot of like bloggers and journalists, but they're more like culture journalists. I used to be one of them. And they're like overly concerned. It's like all they do is they like have like a hysteria about all these bad things.
Because they have nothing else to do. They're just, it's like the idle hand of the devil's workshop sort of thing. It's like, go build a bench or something like that.
But it's like, no matter what's happening, all they're concerned about is making sure that they're a good person. They're a good person. They're a good person. And I just think about how lame of a life that must be, where it's like the things I've always been attracted to is like punk and like guys who are like motorcycle gangs and they like go and ride around the country together and stuff like that. Like that's just being cool. It's not just always being on the right side of history. It's having fun. It's relaxing.
The Hells Angels, and they've not done anything wrong or problematic, so they're fine.
That's what I think. I'd rather be in the Hells Angels than the fucking lead culture blogger at some website who's been right about every issue ever. It's fun to be wrong sometimes.
It's fun. It's fun to just question shit sometimes too. I feel like if you are one of those people who's always worried about virtue signaling, then you not only have to worry about what you are stating, but you also have to worry about what questions you ask. Because then the other virtue signalers on Twitter will say, "Well, because you asked this, you must believe this."
If there's any gangs out there that need someone to like help them with their website.
Yeah, you want to?
Yeah, is Hells Angels online? Do they have a website?
They need a revamp of their website.
Right, you want to be the social media manager for the Mongols?
That would be a 24/7 job.
Hey, Matt, about this tweet you sent out earlier, Switchblade.
Yeah, exactly.
So something I wanted to get into is being straight edge, which I did not know a lot about other than CJ Wilson is straight edge.
Oh, yeah, the pitcher, yeah.
And I played baseball growing up. So I'd heard the term straight edge and I'd heard him talk about being straight edge, but I had never really understood what it meant to be straight edge. Would you guys mind telling people what does it mean to be straight edge and how did you start being straight edge?
For me, I've often said that even if straight edge wasn't a term, I still, like, there's a spectrum. There's some people that want to get chemically fucked up on everything, and there's people that don't care to do anything. I'm on the don't care to do anything side, so straight edge just happens to fit this, and most people are in the middle somewhere. But also, I think straight edge is just kind of funny because a lot of punks, grow up drinking and smoking and stuff, and straight edge was a reaction to those punks. So it's like, fuck you. So it's rebelling against the rebellers in a weird way, with also being weirdly puritanical, which people, but so it was, to me, it was like kind of like a fuck you to my stoner friends. There's like and so it kind of, I kind of think of it as like I am straight edge. I have 2 straight edge tattoos, but I also have to have a sense of humor about it, or it's just like, can't be super serious and militant, like knocking beers out of people's hands, even though I do think that's funny as a concept to knock a beer out of somebody's hand, but then you'd have to expect to fight that person, So for me, it's always just, it's a good-natured.
It started as an identity thing, and now it's how you are, and you're not as wound up in the identity of being straight edge. It's just like you would be anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird concept. It's a very militant concept, So it's a strange just way of being. People just said, like, a lot of my friends are no longer straight edge, and when they started to drink or whatever, there was like a time where it's just like, well, don't tell Bill that I started drinking. He's gonna be fucking pissed, Like, oh man, he's gonna fucking kill me. I'm like, oh. So like, there have been times where I haven't known that my friends were like going to bars for like years, and it's just like, oh shit, am I the last person to know? Like, what the fuck? So there's a weird thing about that.
We've been getting fucked up for 10 years. We just didn't tell you, Bill.
Yeah.
I think I was underneath this lame office sort of crew neck. I have a Youth of the Day shirt on. And I think I was attracted to straight edge because of bands like that. And for the same reason I was just talking about earlier, where it's like they were just cool. They're like buff dudes, and they like did yoga poses and
have
big
unbelievable
jumps. Unbelievable hair.
Yeah, they had the Hare Krishna hair. That's unbelievable stuff.
They had cool style. And then in the punk scene, I was growing up in like middle school, and it seemed like everyone was going to go drink and stuff like that. But it felt like that was a very mainstream culture thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I was more attracted to like the underground stuff. So straight edge felt like a fun rebellion. And again, it was like I thought it was, I had like a gang of little straight edge kids, and we hung out together and caused trouble and menace society.
Yeah,
and I
most
thought that was fun.
trouble I ever caused was with others. Like, my straight edge friends, when we were all straight edge, was the most violent, crazy times. Like, because people are like, oh, you're bored, you're not drinking. It's like, yeah, that's a little bit of it. But
I think some of the times when you are out sober with around other drunk people, those are some of my most entertaining nights when I'm not drinking that night, which also makes me a little bit anxious. I drink way less than I did in college. So I'll casually drink once or twice a month, many times not at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I do go out and I'm not drinking, I feel anxious about like the first time that someone's coming up to me and saying like, dude, like, you're not fucking drinking tonight. I'm like, no, like, stop asking me questions. Like, I just want to sit here and be sober and like wake up and be productive tomorrow.
I've had people try to fight me just because I very politely wasn't drinking.
Right. They think it's a challenge to them. Like, there's an insecurity a lot of times that I think people have.
I was at an SF Weekly party one time, and this guy was like, hey, can I get you a beer? I said, no, sorry, man, I don't drink. And he goes, okay, well, are you in AA? And I go, no. He goes, are you sober? Did you have an addiction problem? And I said, no. And he goes, you self-righteous motherfucker. And he starts yelling. He stands up from his bar stool. You think you're better than everyone, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, I was really taken aback. And he was kind of like, he's probably like 45 or something like that. And I was like 22. And he's yelling. And I said, hey man, calm down. And he kept going. And then I said, look, dude, if you don't shut up, I'm going to whoop your ass in front of all of your colleagues at work. Do you want to get beat up right now? And then the publisher pulled him away.
Yeah, it's like people always need a reason for why you're not drinking, but no one ever asks why you're drinking. Yeah. That could open like a rabbit. Like, why are you drinking tonight?
It's offensive to go against tradition. And it's a big tradition when someone celebrates, when there's an anniversary, when someone becomes a man, when a business deal's closed. Usually you have a drink, a cigar, something like that. And even if you try to politely reject, it comes across as disrespectful sometimes, even when you don't mean it to. So it was more fun when I was younger, and I liked being disrespectful. Now it's unfortunate when I'm trying to be polite, but it comes off as disrespectful. Also, as I got older, I realized that there was a lot of addiction problems in my family, and that probably was why I was attracted to it in the beginning. I didn't 100% understand that when I was young, because I got into straight edge when I was in freshman year of high school.
Yeah, on that the concept of the disrespectful thing, my wife and I went to Italy on our honeymoon, and she's like, if we go out to dinner and somebody offers you wine, you're going to tell them no? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to fucking tell them no, She's like, but it's kind of that's what they do. I was like, well, then they need to understand that's what I don't do, and I'll just take a fucking water. God damn, it's not hard.
You hear that rage? I was in Japan one time, and these salarymen came up to me, and they're blackout drunk, and they invited me to go drinking with them. And I went, and my brother was drinking with them. He used to be straight edge, but he's not anymore. And I actually do, that's one of the main things about straight edge I kind of regret is the inability to have cross-cultural bonding. because it's kind of like this global cultural phenomenon that you should drink with new friends and to loosen up and relax. And
like a social lubricant.
And I have really great friends here who I don't need that. And I have business partners here where I don't need that. But like I'm in Japan and I can't speak the language with someone and they want to show me their culture and bring me on this great experience and I can't quite fully engage and participate. That actually, I feel like that's a little bit of a regret.
Because that guy thinks that you're being rude and you don't want his friendship or something.
He doesn't understand it. Yeah. He just thinks, what's wrong with this kid? I don't get it. But, if I was just it'd be a fun experience to go and experience someone else's culture like that with them. He like brought me into this basement of a bar where him and his like whole like organization of people were drinking to celebrate. It was called Super Friday. It was like the last Friday before New Year's.
Was this at an Outback Steakhouse in Tokyo? Because I know you really like Outback. This is where you ate in New York City. He got to New York. He's like, bring me to the nearest Outback Steakhouse.
I ate there one time.
Some real New York food.
One time I ate there.
Really, on that note about like people getting upset. Like when I used to go to parties in my early 20s, like if there'd be times where fights would just happen because I lived in Massachusetts and everybody just wants to fight all the time. If I wanted to go in and not have any trouble, I would grab a beer can and I'd wash it out in the sink and I'd fill it up with tap water and I would just drink out of that and nobody would ever say anything. But if I did not do that and I'm just standing there with nothing in my hands, it's like somebody's going to come over to me like, what the fuck's your problem, man? Like I was just standing here minding my own business.
Yeah, it's such a strong cultural force that just abstaining, even politely and quietly, can be deemed offensive, which is, I think that's what pushes it into being a subculture. And that's why it's nice having straight edge friends and stuff like that. People who are willing to just accept you for the fact that you like to drink Coke a little bit more. You know what I mean? It doesn't seem like it should always be that big of a deal, but sometimes people really don't like it. And it's like, I had this one time where this ex-girlfriend of mine and her friends or whatever, they were going to do drugs, which is great. No problem, whatever. They're going to a concert.
That's the other like big misconception about straight edge people. Like, you want to do drugs? Go do drugs. I don't really care.
So they were going to this concert and they were going to drop acid before the show or something like that. And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem, blah, blah, blah. And then they uninvited me. They said, we don't want you to be there.
Yeah, because you're going to be judging us all night because of
I wasn't going to.
Yeah.
I thought, wow, that's like super rude. They're like, I can't come. It was like, you know what I mean? It was like 6 people or whatever. We were all, friends, college, all that sort of stuff. And they said, well, we actually don't want you to be there. I would never give them a hard time.
I was just on a bachelor party trip and everyone else in the group was dropping acid besides me. I'd never done it, so I didn't want to drop acid as my first time in a group walking around with a bunch of strangers I don't know in all these random bars. And they were totally cool with it. They're like, dude, that's fine. Like you're on your own journey. Like, like just the most acid shit you can think of. Like, dude, embrace your journey, dude. Like, you're fine. Nope. Like I'll guide you tonight if you want. If not, like it'll enter your life when the time's right. I was like, now I kind of want to do acid.
They're on another podcast right now talking about, and there's this big giant floating green lizard. And I told them, no problem. You don't need to do the acid,
exactly. But I mean, it was funny being out that night and just watching them in their element, talking to other people and knowing that they were on acid, seeing all this trippy shit and that other person's just on 1 or 2 drinks, having a normal conversation and they're on Mars. I'm just like, I wonder what's going through his head right now.
Yeah, I've had a lot of friends over the years that are like massive drug using people. And I used to go skateboarding in Boston with friends and like the first stop would be them trying to score acid somewhere so they could skateboard on acid for the rest of the day. And I always found that interesting until one day they got robbed during a drug deal while I sat on the sidewalk, like outside of the alley. I was like, you guys go do your thing. I'll be right over here. And then they came back pissed off at me saying, if you were there, we wouldn't have got fucking robbed. And I was like, 110-pound me wasn't going to stop them. Yeah. Nobody looked at freshman year high school Bill Conway and thought, this guy is going to stop somebody from robbing someone with a knife.
Yeah. What were your friends like?
They were
Smaller
scary people.
Really?
Like, they were like, a lot of them gone on, they've been in jail for times. These were like the bad dudes of the town I grew up in. But I was the one that was going to prevent them from getting robbed.
Maybe they need a social media manager like the Hells Angels.
It's
you reach out to them. Maybe they're in Hells Angels. 2 birds, 1 stone.
How old are you?
25.
I found that the older...
26. I just turned 26.
Yeah, I knew it. I was going to say, you don't look
I feel
25
though. I feel 25.
I feel like the older I get, I'm only 28, but I feel like the older I get, the less people give me shit about not drinking. Especially women, like younger women. Like when I was like 20 to 24, like not drinking was like, I was like a pariah. But like the older I get, they've been with someone who like had a problem with it or was really obnoxious. And now they're like, hey, it's kind of nice. Matt is always a little bit level-headed. He doesn't like black out and throw stuff across the apartment, stuff like that.
I'm 35 now. And so everybody I know that was a raging drunk is going sober at this point. So it's all like come back around full circle.
So once again, like your comedy, you were just an early adopter.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get into the raging drunk stuff when I turn 35.
Yeah, you got
Flip
a
the
lot of time
switch.
to wait and make up for. Like as soon as you break edge, like you're going to be fucking nuts.
Well, the first time I heard the term breaking edge, I was digging through your old podcast.
Oh, Edgeland, yes.
Edgeland. And you were on there.
Yeah, that's how Matt and I
that
met.
was the episode
That's how we met.
was. Yeah, that's really cool. Podcasts are cool.
Facts.
But
That's
yeah,
the pull quote. Podcasts are cool.
what's the closest you guys have come to breaking edge? Which, for people that don't know what that means, drinking or doing drugs, something that would make you not straight edge.
So the closest I've come, and I still don't think it counts, is I was in Lyon, France. You know, it's a beautiful country town. No, it's a port city.
I was going to say, who's Leon France?
Yeah. So Leon and I are sharing this passionate night together. But I was skateboarding around, and all the shops were closing up, and I went inside and I grabbed what I thought was an apple juice out of a fridge, and then I took a drink. I was like, and I spit it out. I was like, that's alcohol, and I threw it out. So that's the closest I've come to breaking.
That doesn't count.
Yeah, it wouldn't count because I didn't voluntarily. But there's never been a time like it. A lot of guys will break edge because, or girls will break edge because of like a partner that they're dating or something like that, and just like, oh, I want to get laid, so I'm gonna do this. But I've just been, I don't fucking care about this shit, you know.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't think I've ever really considered it, but then I remembered I dated a woman for like 5.5 years, and then we broke up, and I was 21, and it was a really hard time not to be drinking, and it did feel like my life could take a change, and I could become a different person. I don't think I seriously considered it, but that was a point in my life where I thought, well, maybe I'll just become a different person, and that person might not be straight edge. But it's weird, man, you know, I think I've heard this with people who go vegetarian and stuff, is like you crave meat for like a certain amount of time, like a month or two, and then you don't anymore, you know? And I think when you're growing up, if you learn that alcohol is to celebrate or alcohol is to get over a rough day at work or whatever, you kind of get used to it. But I never got into that. So like I never sit there thinking, I wish I had a beer. It's just because I don't even know. It's not even part of my world.
I guess like
routine.
it's your own sense of normal.
Yeah,
but yeah, you're right. When you're not doing something, when you're doing something for a huge period of time,
And I think
then there's always that 2-week, month-long period where your body is just craving it. I'm going through that with porn right now. I'm trying to not watch porn.
Yeah.
I did it for a month, about 2 months ago. And now I was listening.
You have a girlfriend?
No.
Or boyfriend? I don't know.
No, I don't have a partner. I mean, 2 weeks into it, you crave it really hard. And then that next 2 weeks was a little bit easier. But I told myself before that I was going to not do it for a month and just see how it goes. And I really liked it. And then I went back to watching porn. Which is fun.
That too.
Fun. I liked it a lot. It was like the sober October for Joe Rogan. I felt like I was like sitting down, like.
So what did you learn on your mission? Just that you like jerking off and that you also like not jerking off? Or?
I like the creativity of my. Well, I still jerked off. I just didn't use porn.
I
like the creativity of my jerking off. I like the imagining, the highlight reel. Like it forces you to imagine stuff and the external.
Oh, because you're still jerking. And you're just
I'm still jerking. I'm just not watching porn.
I mean, I just want. Is there photos to prove this? I mean, what are we talking about?
He's saying, how accountable are you?
Yeah.
How are we supposed to believe it?
I don't know. I mean, you don't have to believe it. I guess I could do like some daily updates, but even that, I could still be jerking it when I'm not on the live stream or watching porn.
Sorry to cut you off. Keep going.
No,
Tell me about when was the last time you jerked off?
So it was more a utility thing for me. It wasn't like some sort of moral awakening. When I was watching porn, it would be late at night, and then that would lead into more YouTube videos. So I'd be, from watching porn to staring at my phone, it'd be like an hour and a half rabbit hole. And then I was just wide awake, couldn't fall asleep. Then I'd be like, fuck, now I got to jerk off again. Like, to put myself to sleep.
For those of you who are listening just to the audio podcast, at one point in that story, he looked at his hands like as if they were overly chafed. Did you see that, Bill?
Yeah.
His hands have caused so much damage.
Exactly. But so I was like, I want to shut my phone off 8 o'clock, like not look at it after that.
You watch porn on your phone?
Watch porn on my phone, yeah. On the incognito tab.
Grow up and get a laptop, man. What are you doing?
I mean, sometimes, but it's just like you're accessible. You don't want to watch porn on your laptop in bed because then the hotness of the laptop starts to like burn your
Put it on the side, bro. You don't put it on your stomach.
Get a stand-up desk.
I mean, you guys are making me not want to quit porn right now. I'm just like going back.
Here, I'll show you how to do it after the podcast.
Yeah, we'll do it.
You lay down.
We'll do it
I'll
live.
show you where you put the laptop.
For you guys just listening, I'll
here's the thing,
explain
though.
to you what's happening.
Pornhub on the phone, it's like less videos, less options, less categories, right?
No, so on the laptop, Pornhub, I think is worse because it has the main screen and then the little thumbnails are put off to the right. So you can't really see what's going on in the thumbnails because they make them too small. But on your phone, you can scroll through the full size thumbnails. So you get like more of the action. So you have more choice on the main screen on Pornhub.
This is where we differ.
Yeah.
This is a big...
You guys are really going at it right
Yes,
now.
because on Pornhub on the phone, it's only like 5 videos per page, and then you have to go to the next page. And although the thumbnails are bigger, you have far less variety.
I like the limit though, because when you pull up a video, the variety causes you to think, did I sell out too soon on the video? Or is there another video that's waiting for me to jerk off to? And so if you only have 5, then it's like your options are limited and you're like, all right, well, this seems good compared to the other 4, not the other 60.
You're being overly disciplined on your jerk off routine. You got to go wild with it, man. You got to be clicking all over the place.
That's what happens. That's what keeps him up all night.
I do. Well, then I go down the rabbit hole. It's an hour and a half. I realize I haven't jerked off yet. Then I'm just like,
well, and I understand. Like, so
how do you jerk off, Bill?
So I
help him.
Yeah. I usually do the thing. I microwave a bagel, stick it in between the couch cushion, and it's just a mess.
You gotta put it in the toaster oven.
Yeah. But no, I understand like the thing about like my wife goes to bed early because she's a baker. So I'm usually up, but I try to like shut the TV off like an hour before I go to sleep and like read a book so I can fall asleep. And I like have my phone turned over and I will not look at it in general, you know? So like there is a thing just about shutting your brain off, and porn is the thing that's pulling you towards your computer in general.
Exactly.
So if you can just get rid of that, then you wouldn't care to look at it and you get a great 8 hours of sleep.
I thought he was leading into his jerk off routine. My wife goes to sleep early.
No,
then picking out the phone or whatever.
That brings up a good point, though. Should I just flip flop my jerk off routine and do it in the morning?
Yeah, start your day.
Start my day with
by jerking off. That's insane.
But I feel like you get tired.
You don't jerk off before you go to sleep?
Well, I mean, yeah, it happens, but
yeah, that's when.
My thing is that you get tired after you jerk off. It's like a release, so you don't want to go into your morning.
Yeah. That's what I agree.
You don't want to be fueling back to your normal with a cup of coffee. You want to be at normal and then have that bring your energy up. So
I guess it depends on what your normal is, you know?
Yeah.
I think one time I didn't watch porn for like 2 years
5
or something
minutes.
like that.
2 years.
Yeah, I had a girlfriend though, but I just didn't watch porn during that time.
How did you feel?
That's fine. Yeah. We were young. We were in high school. It was like
young love doesn't need porn.
Yeah, it was that period of my life.
And then like when you got back into it, you were just hours and hours, just look at all this new content I've missed. Because the thing that you don't know about Matt is he actually tried to watch every video on Pornhub at one point in his life. So he spent weeks and weeks.
I went to the Pornhub Awards.
How was that?
It was great. It was at the end of a month of not jerking off now.
It was your celebration?
Yeah, my girlfriend runs a lingerie brand, and she made some lingerie for some of the actresses there. So she was invited, and she took me along. And there's a guy, a porn star, his name is Small Hands, and another porn star named Joanna Angel. And they're a married couple, and they're old hardcore kids, and they support our website. So I got to meet them and hang out with them in person. We also did a comedy sketch with Riley Reid, and
we were just talking about Riley Reid on the Logan Paul podcast.
Oh,
that's
right.
a great episode if you guys haven't.
Riley Reid and Amanda Dangers.
Abella Danger.
Abella Danger.
I was going to say that sounds right.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. It got taken off of YouTube. Yeah.
All they did was read video game titles, right?
We did like 3 of them with them. And one of them was them reading video game titles in super sexy voices. I forget what the first one was.
Wasn't
I think I wrote the first
about
one.
The comments section about...
the comment section was like, yeah, like how do we get in touch with you?
Right.
But I thought we did 3.
I mean, I wasn't on set. You didn't invite me.
We were on the set. And it was like a porn set and a comedy set. They were trying to like double book the space. So we would be telling them their lines.
You're actually on a casting couch right now. This is what we do full time.
They were like, we were telling them their lines, and then they would say, okay, you guys quiet down for a little bit. And then in the same room, the girls would go and they would like masturbate extremely loudly to like this big fake orgasm. And then they'd be like, all right, you guys can film again. It was for Fleshlight. They sponsor some comedy stuff.
Now I want to interview jerk off and then interview a porn star so I could ask them what are the biggest differences between fake and real orgasms.
Porn stars interviews are the worst.
You think so?
There's a lot of podcasts that do that, and like it's just a guy being like super like, so do you like dicks?
Well, I mean, if you talk, but you could say it in a non. Like, do you like dicks? Not like
it's not good.
Both of those sounded creepy
do you like
to me.
dicks?
I don't
know. Do you like?
I'm telling you, porn star interviews are usually not the best. I've heard a couple of them.
That's what Joe Rogan's podcast sounds like to me. It's just like porn star interviews.
So
no,
is the guy?
Joe Rogan has fucking professors.
Is the
on.
guy in the porn star interview? Is he mostly trying to be a creep, or do you think he's genuinely interested in the life and routine of a porn star? Because I have a lot of questions that would apply to their daily routine, how they get ready for shit, like not in a completely
like the behind the scenes.
Like take me through the day in the life of a porn star.
Yeah, you're doing work.
That story's been told. Maybe some people find it interesting, just not me. That's what I would say. I also feel like maybe the host of the shows, they think about what their audience wants to hear. And so like their audience is kind of like, oh, she's hot. So then like the questions just lead, like they always have to talk about sex and stuff like that. I think it's Riley Reid. Who's the one? Oh, Sasha Grey? Sasha Grey became a...
Yeah, she's like retired from
writer.
Yeah, she's an actress and she writes too. I didn't know that.
So like if someone wanted to interview Sasha Grey and talk about writing, I would find that interesting. But the whole just like, what's it like when you have to have sex? I don't know.
There's the voice.
Yeah, you've listened to a lot of these podcasts.
Yeah.
The Creep Podcast Network.
Yeah.
It's great.
So speaking of terrible transition, getting taken down from YouTube with getting having the porn stars read the titles. Mm-hmm. How does the algorithm stuff with Facebook that's happening right now, the constant adjustments and them coming out and saying we're not going to censor political ads, how does that affect satire?
I fucked this up pretty bad, man.
Yeah, Facebook sucks.
There was a big switch. It was called Friends and Family. You hear about that one? We think Facebook users want
they're going to promote more friends and family.
Friends and family. That turned down our traffic by about 70% overnight, and our company started losing money for the first time in its history.
How much of your traffic comes from Facebook?
70, 80%. So,
and then it just
disappeared.
That's fucked up.
And then they wanted money from us to make it come back. And we had to try a whole bunch of stuff, but we fixed it.
Yeah.
We didn't get it on Facebook anymore, but we just tried all these different tactics. And eventually our traffic is back where it used to be and a little higher. Hard drive has to do with it. But man, we didn't know how good we had it.
Yeah, when we first, like when anybody ever asks us like, oh, what can I do to start my own comedy site? It's like, don't, because it's, you can't at this point with like the platforms that have been, you can't be a success on Facebook at this point anymore. For the most part, I would say.
No, I think that's true.
Because it's hard to get organic traffic.
It's impossible.
Yeah, and especially like if you were doing a satire site and it's just labeled as fake news or something, you're just another, like I think we were able to build up just enough credibility as a comedy source that we weren't completely shut off. Like we still had to deal with a big traffic dump, but we were established enough where it wasn't just, that's another one of these fake news Russian, whatevers.
We got so lucky, man, that we got in when the getting was good and we built an audience and people know who we were before they turned the traffic off, because it is just brutal nowadays. It used to be we would write a single joke and they'd show it to 2 million people. Now the same joke, same strength joke, they'll show that to 100,000 people. It's not just like a little like, oh, they made a little tweak. It's like they pretty much turned it off. And we had to do all these different tactics and start another website, Hard Drive, which is like a video game version of Hard Times, and hire more people and buff up everything and go all out just to get back to where we used to be. So it's there when we were doing this in the start. A lot of websites kind of jumped in too, and Above Average was doing it, Funny or Die was doing it, and they all gave up because it's not really that profitable a thing. So it's a very difficult thing, and one of the ways that we got around that was we decided to make a book. We tried all these different tactics of how to get your content to the people who want it, right? Because these people signed up to hear from us, and then they weren't allowed to hear from us.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people on Facebook that like us. Whatever happened to that Hard Times thing? And it's just we're still,
because they're not getting shown it anymore.
Right. And we're more active than ever, but they're just not popping up in their feeds.
So it's like kind of like the ultimate way to fight an algorithm is to tell people they can go into any Barnes and Nobles and pick up 3,000 of your jokes that are in a book, and they can have them.
Is that a lot of the thinking behind releasing the Hard Times book?
Yeah. That's like it. We lost our connection. It's crazy that publishers don't own their connection to their audiences, because their audiences want to see and hear from them. But there's a middleman who's charging a fee that's so high that no small independent, we're owned by just ourselves and punk kids. We don't have like a financial backer or a big institution behind us. There's no way we can manage to cough up the thousands of dollars Facebook wants us just to talk to the people who already want to hear from us.
Because before Facebook really got big, I mean, you would have your toolbar across the top of your thing of all your saved pages. You just click across everything you wanted to see. And now you kind of just go to Facebook and whatever that wants to show you. But I mean, if we could go back to those old days of the internet and the Hard Times was on everybody's toolbar, that liked the Hard Times on Facebook, we'd be back, back at that old traffic mark, because you just click across. And also people consume things differently on their phone now too. So it's a whole
so it's like
different thing.
The power is all centralized now around these big tech giants, one of them being Facebook. And Facebook decided that I think kind of happened? They were getting so much shit for the misinformation, fake news, Russian meddling stuff. I think it was a 2-for-1 deal where they realized if they just dramatically, instead of actually moderating it and finding out which pages were like Russian influencer stuff, like dark money stuff, if they just turned down the reach of all of them, the problem would be muted overall.
Yeah, because they just want to do less work and have an effect that looks like to outsiders that they're solving the problem.
And so like, if there was like a fake set up Black Lives Matter thing that was actually Russian people just trying to piss off people in the South or whatever, that page is no longer effective. But they didn't have to figure out that page was a Russian-owned page.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It's crazy how the most powerful, I don't know if the most powerful, but some of the most powerful people in the world now are the ones who design the algorithms for things like Facebook or self-driving cars, things that are going to make decisions for you and for the greater public. And it's affecting billions of people, but you have 10 people in a room, 20 people in a room that are making these changes that might be in an echo chamber of ideas that have little to no context of what the general public wants to see.
The Facebook newsfeed algorithm is private too. They don't share it. When Facebook was first around, there was actually little dials that you could choose. And it said, how much news do you want? How much friends and family do you want? How many photos do you want? And you could adjust it 0 to 10. Now they make all the decisions for you, and they don't tell you what the decisions are.
And when you look at your Facebook feed now, 70% ads? And even my Instagram, I don't know if it's maybe just being in New York for the past 4 days, I've noticed much more sponsored content on my Instagram. And I don't know if that's a New York thing.
No, I know.
Do you have seen more sponsored?
No, you want to know what it is? It's people are leaving Facebook, and Facebook owns Instagram. And so Zuckerberg and all the Facebook executives started leaning on Instagram, saying, you guys got to start carrying your weight around here. We can't just have people flooding over to Instagram, leaving Facebook without us catching them with the ads. So they wanted to dramatically increase the ads on Instagram. And the 2 guys who founded Instagram left.
But I've noticed it just in the last 4 days. I've a lot more sponsored, but it's not even ads for Corona. It's just some person and her dog that are just hey, follow me on our adventures. What the fuck are you doing?
Personal accounts being advertised to you.
But I mean, I live in Los Angeles, so maybe it looked like they were LA-based people. So it's is it, what's going on here? But those people, I could never imagine paying money to put my face into somebody else's feed, like pay $15 and it's just like me leaning up against a wall being like, hey, follow me on my adventures.
I think I put $750 into the book. I wanted to tell people we had a book, so we put $750 into that. And
on Facebook or Instagram?
On Facebook, just because I was desperate just to let those 300,000 people who like us know that it existed.
Because with the algorithm, they're not all going to see that.
No. They actually, I think that Facebook also knows when pictures have text inside of them, and they decrease the reach of pictures that have text inside of them. So if you have a picture that says new book out now, they decrease the reach of that. And the reason why I think I stumbled across that was because if you choose to boost a post that has a picture with text in it, it actually alerts you and it says, this picture has a lot of text in it. It's not going to do well and you probably shouldn't advertise it. So I think that they also, when you don't advertise them, they also choke those ones. The whole thing's a fucking nightmare, dude. I really wish that we had diversified our audience a little bit more before all that stuff happened.
TikTok. I think Bill should control the TikTok page.
I'm all over it. I've got a great singing voice. And that karaoke stuff right up my alley. You should see my Baby Shark shit.
I feel like there's got to be like no punks on TikTok.
No, that's the least punk social media thing
like
that's ever
12-year-old kids, right?
And we need to go back to MySpace. Punks took over MySpace first.
MySpace was music oriented.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't at first. Then it developed a little bit of the
Those
music.
band pages were great.
Yeah. MySpace was sick. Bring back MySpace.
Dane Cook blew up on MySpace.
Yeah, Dane Cook ruined MySpace. That's what happened. It's Dane Cook's fault that Tom sold out and took off with all that.
You're blaming Dane Cook for the downfall of MySpace?
I blame Dane Cook for a lot of things.
I thought it was the Black Eyed Peas.
No, I don't know.
I remember Facebook, they got sold to Fox or whatever. And then right after that, there was this giant rapper interstitial ad, like a pop-up ad for the Black Eyed Peas when you went to your MySpace login page. And I remember everyone was like, dude, MySpace sucks now.
I don't remember that.
It was like, Black Eyed Peas, new album out now. It was like overly aggressive. And then MySpace started being dominated by ads. I think people left.
Yeah. I mean, that was right when Facebook was like transitioning out of just college kids thing. So Facebook seemed cool.
I remember I only got a Facebook because there was this girl I had a crush on and she had a Facebook.
That's actually why I got a Facebook too. Yeah. Now that you mention it. Yeah.
So going back to stand-up comedy, I feel like this would be a good point to end on. We have a little bit of fan mail posted that we were going to do this interview today and someone got back to us.
Wow.
So one person, his name is Chris Rock.
Okay.
You guys might know him. Says, hey guys, Chris Rock here. I used to follow the Hard Times on Twitter. Then one day I heard Matt talking about the time when a blind dog started fucking on top of him. And Matt got up before the dog finished. Everyone knows that you never disturb a blind dog while it's fucking. That's fucked up. Still love the content though. Keep it real. Chris.
What's his question?
That was it.
Oh.
Man.
We're just going to end it on that.
Yeah. So that was a deeply researched troll you did there. Yeah. Chris Rock did follow us on Instagram for a while and then unfollowed us. And yeah, I do tell a story about a blind dog fucking on top of me too often in inappropriate situations. And
I figured I heard it told 4 times on previous podcasts, so I just throw it in at the end, so you didn't have to recount it. I'll let people dig through the other.
What other stories do I tell too often that you came across?
Too often?
Yeah.
I mean, that one wasn't too often. I think you just said it on.
You should do.
He told it earlier today too.
Yeah.
So
Did you?
Yeah, he's mentioned.
Did someone ask you about it, or do you bring it up?
No, you wonder what the question was.
Is it a
and when he
badge of
brought
honor?
it up?
Is it
No,
bad?
The question was, what else are you guys doing in New York? And Matt was like,
Fucking
well, one time
blind
a dog almost fucked on my head. Seriously, that's not even
I'm
joking.
gonna go in the subway and try to get fucked on top of by a blind dog again.
The way Matt launched into the story, I thought I had a stroke and missed 30 seconds of a conversation. Where I was like, hold on, where did the blind dog humping shit come from? But it's an okay story. Got to tighten it up a little bit.
I got to tighten it up. It's not really that refined of a story. It's just something that happened to me. I have a couple stories that I feel like are pretty good. What do you think of... Your Bill saying no?
I'm going to disagree.
No? Okay.
What was the other story you're about to ask about?
Yeah, he can preview it, and then if he thinks it's good, we can.
I feel like I have some pretty good stories from working room service at the hotel.
Oh yeah, those are good stories.
Yeah.
The one, the last story of the podcast, the one about the guy that had all the things lined up on the table.
Can you tell one of my stories? You know the story?
Okay,
so can you tell it in first person?
I
like
think
Matt?
he knows it. We've been around long enough.
All right,
so where were you?
So I'm Matt. So I'm working at the.
That's weird that you'd say that in first person.
Yeah, I'm Matt. I was working at the Governor Bradford Hotel.
No.
What was it called?
Sir Francis Drake.
Sir Francis Drake. So I'm working at the Sir Francis Drake in San Francisco, right by Union Square. And this guy, he calls up for room service, and I go up there, and there's a lot of stairs. So I'm walking up the stairs, and I get up there, and I'm young. I'm like 21, 22, and I just get up. I'm glistening with sweat, just over my body, all over. I open the door, and the guy's only wearing like a bathrobe, but I see behind him, he just has a bunch of dildos like lined up on his dresser, and then he invites me in, and it was really uncomfortable. And eventually, I had to run out of the room because it was clear that the guy had just invited me up for sex. But I know I'm missing something.
I said, where did I put the coffee down? He had ordered coffee, and he goes, oh, let me make some room for you. He goes, pop. He lays his hand down, and he scoots.
I thought you were about to say his dick. I was like, how big was this dude's dick?
He
brings it over his shoulder.
Yeah, he just lassoed it from his shoulder.
He scoots all these little army of butt plugs over, and you can hear him squeaking like squeak, 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 right? Because they're rubber across this like laminated table. And then I noticed there's a guy on a couch, much younger than the guy who invited me in.
I forgot about the guy that was passed out.
And he goes, oh my God. Why'd you let this guy in here? He's naked. And he takes a pillow like this and he covers himself up. And he goes, oh man, I'm naked. Why would you let a guy in here? And then they made me wear like this bow tie and this little like uniform. And he goes, oh, he's kind of cute though. And then he super comically removed the pillow to like show me his dick. And I go, okay, great. Sounds good. And then I noticed there was another guy face down on the bed, also naked. And then the guy who had just showed me his dick was like, you can hang out with us if you want. You can stay. And I just remember thinking, guys, if I was going to like go gay, I don't think I'd start with like a hotel orgy.
No.
You know what I mean? I would like,
you gotta set the bar high.
It'd be like my girlfriend's brother or something. You know what I mean? Like more natural, more normal.
Yeah, the normal stuff.
Yeah.
Like your girlfriend's brother.
I also had a guy one time call me up in a panic. He goes, totally coked out, can I get like 8 pizzas, 10 burgers, some fries? I definitely need fries, right? Give me 3 Cokes, okay? And be here right away. And the thing was closing down in like 3 minutes, but I could tell I was going to get a tip off this guy, right? So I was like, all right, great. And I rushed.
Oh, you were going to get a tip.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I rushed it up to him. Huge fucking like wheeling these like 8 pieces in there, right? I push it in and he goes, yeah, come on in. And then I notice there's a girl in the bed and she's naked, but she's kind of covered up. And he goes, hey man, what's the biggest tip you ever got? Like, what's the biggest tip? And I go, oh, don't worry about it, man. My tip's actually included because there was like a forced 20%.
That's so bad to say. My tip's included.
No, it's a serious tip though. It was forced 20% and these burgers were like $30. So he was already tipping me like, a decent. So I was like, don't worry about it, man. Plus, I feel like that's nicer. So maybe they tip me more. And he goes, no. Tell me what's something that would blow your mind. And I go, you really don't have to worry about it, man. Like I'm already tipped. And he goes, hey, let me tell you something. I've always had this fantasy, right? Where like the room service guy, he comes into the room and like, he fucks my girl, right? So babe, show him your tits. Show him your tits, babe. And the girl goes, ooh, like this. And she like shows me her nipples a little bit. I go, oh, okay, great. Well, like I'm working. Like it's no big deal, right? I'm like trying to get out of here. And he goes, well, check this out. And he writes down a number and he shows it to me and it's $80. And he goes, what do you think?
On what? What did he write it
down? On the tip. $80. What do you think, man? I go, that's so generous of you. Thank you so much. And I just got out of the room right away. I had a girlfriend at the time, but he wanted me to have sex with his wife in front of him.
Would you have done it if you were single?
No. I go downstairs and there's this guy who's like 60. He's been working at this hotel for 30 years. It's an old hotel. And I go, man, that's crazy. This guy, he offered me, tried to pay me $80 to have sex with his wife. He said, don't do it. I go, I wasn't going to. He goes, did you do it? No, man. I just told you I didn't do it. He goes, are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. I did not have sex with this person.
Positive I didn't have sex with him.
Why are you freaking out? And he goes, well, one time a guy did do it. And he got back downstairs and then the wife called him and said, you got to get out of the hotel. And apparently she had told her husband and her husband was coming to the hotel with a gun. And so the room service guy, they had to hide him in a back room. They called the cops and the cops were waiting outside the hotel. The guy showed up, popped his trunk, pulled out a shotgun and started walking towards the hotel and they arrested him.
But this was a
Jesus.
different situation. This guy wanted you to have sex with his wife. He didn't have a shotgun ready, so, you blew it.
So the guy with the shotgun is different than the guy that wanted you to have sex with his wife.
I don't know if it's. I mean, what if his fantasy also includes the shotgun?
Yeah,
but
like
he
how do
hasn't unveiled
when
that
do you
part
know?
yet.
When do you know to call the cops if you're still in the midst of fantasy? If the shotgun is part of the role play, if you
Dude,
let it ride for a little bit, but
I'm
then
not
at the
trying
same
to-
time, you're not trying to get a hole in your chest.
I'm not trying to get stabbed while I'm
Yeah.
having sex with some random person.
Right,
It's, like,
it's
it's
not
a
worth it.
mess.
Yeah, it's not worth it. And you're on the clock, so it's...
Yeah, I'm on the clock.
See, this is why a porn star would be interesting on a podcast. I'll continue to disagree with you because you've never. How do you know when the role play starts and when it ends? Like what?
Well, they're getting
there's a lot of
paid, right? And they have I think they have scene notes where they say, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. This was sprung on me. I don't know, man.
How many naked people did you see at that job?
Once, maybe twice a week, there'd be an old dude. They were always like 60, 70 years old. And you could order the breakfast to be ready when you woke up. And I think what would happen is they would get drunk at a business meeting. They would write down what they wanted for breakfast and they hang it on the outside of the door. And then I would come and collect it. I would get their breakfast ready and I'd bring it back up to them. But they would mark down, bring it to me at 5:45 or whatever. So I'd knock on their door and they'd be like, oh man, I didn't know, blah, blah, blah. And they'd let me in, right? And they'd be wearing a bathrobe, it would seem like. And then I would push the I would push the cart into the bedroom and then I'd turn around and they'd still be at the door and they'd go, oh! And then their dick would be out. They're just naked, right? It's like they forgot they were naked. And this would happen routinely. To the point where I just knew when someone ordered a 5:45 breakfast, it was it came with I got a picture of a dick.
Are you
know what I mean?
familiar with the YouTuber Stevie Emerson?
No.
I need to send you a video that he did. It's basically a parody of him being a pizza delivery boy and he's sick of MILFs trying to fuck him all the time.
I had this mom-aged woman. It was so corny. She goes, yeah, can I get a pizza with extra sausage?
What do you think that meant?
Extra sausage.
She
Please
repeated it just like that.
Do not forget my extra
Is
sausage.
she just a meat lover? I don't
I
understand.
thought maybe she was. And then I showed up to the hotel and she was only wearing a t-shirt with no pants. And then she goes, oh, I forgot. Where's my money? And she bent over the bed.
That's literally the video.
It's so what would happen is there's a lot of people come to this hotel. It's in San Francisco and there'd be sex festivals and stuff, Folsom Street fairs. And people would come to the hotel to do weird stuff. So it was kind of normal. Someone would order coffee and then you just see a full GIMP outfit on the bed and stuff. And that's just part of the job or whatever. It's no big deal. But there was also, I didn't know this when I got the job, but there's 0.001% of women who call room service for sex. And I don't know if sometimes room service guys are having sex with them so that's why they do it. But there was a person who she called up and she was like, hey, can I get what's that girl? Mimosa? Can I get a mimosa? And I go, sure. And she goes what's your name? I'm mad. Yeah. Okay. Well, it's great. So 5 minutes and come on up and give me a mimosa. Right. I was okay, cool. You have such a nice voice, Matt. All this weird, extra stuff. I'm okay. Anyways, I come up, I hand her the mimosa.
Did she ask for the mimosa with extra sausage?
I go, knock, knock, knock. I open the door. She's wearing a towel. And she's like, oh, thank you so much for our mimosa. Yeah, you can put it down anywhere you want. And I was like, you can just have it, right? I just handed it to her.
Yeah, drinking in front of you.
And I walked away. 10 minutes go by. The phone rings again. Hey, I'm done with that mimosa, Matt. Are you still there? Do you want to come back up? Get me another one. What do you think? And so I bring her up a second mimosa. And then that time she goes oh, yeah, let me get my room card or whatever to pay for it. And then she was oops. And she was in the bathroom and she dropped her towel. I'm okay. Thanks. I don't know if that's my tip, but I guess some guys who work room service must be having sex all the time. Gay sex, orgies, just sex with moms.
Yeah, I mean, if it's 0.01%, there are a lot of people ordering room service.
It got to the point where if a woman called up on the phone and they started to be weird, I'd be like, can you send that up? Because it was weird. I don't want to deal with repeated advances all the time. it's a porno fantasy, the room service guy.
So I had
Yeah.
a friend that worked as a barista in San Francisco, and he was like crashing on my couch. He had just broken up with his girlfriend, was kind of homeless, was living on my couch with his dog, and he was working as a barista and he just disappeared for 2 days without a text or anything. And my wife and I were just like watching his dog and like, where the fuck is he? And he finally like came back and he's like, dude, I had the craziest weekend. This German flight attendant came into the coffee shop and she gave me your hotel card. I've been having sex with her nonstop for the past 2 days. And then when she left, she said, I have a husband and 2 kids in Germany. Never contact me. And I was like, well, you could have texted me so I knew to take care of your dog.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Okay, yeah. So I actually had a couple of flight attendants too. That was a big thing. Flight attendants are super lonely on the road, super pervy and gross. And I had a boss who he worked in the pastry department. He like wasn't my direct boss, but he was like a superior and like a star at the hotel. And he would grope the shit out of me. But then he was like a world-class dessert chef. And he'd make me the most amazing treats.
So it was worth the grope.
And I started going with it.
Yeah.
I was like, whatever, man. How's it going?
I know I'm going to get dessert later.
Yeah,
Like, you're just like, I start asking for the grope.
Yeah,
you're
he's like,
hungry.
dude, those chocolate strawberries today or whatever. And like, I'd be like punching in and he'd get like too close behind me.
You start
I'm
wearing
like,
assless chaps to work.
Whatever, dude. He was like a nice enough guy. And like, he just kept grabbing my butt all the time and talking about sex, hell of inappropriate stuff. But he would always give me the best treats. Worth it.
Trick or treat.
Yeah. Hey, when you got the goods, you know.
I'm talking like world class. He was talking about TV and stuff. And he'd be like, I made you this cake. I'd be like,
On that note,
awesome.
I'm going to go watch porn for the next 17 hours with the laptop on the side so
That's how
I
you
don't
do
burn
it.
a hole in my stomach.
That's how you do it.
But thank you guys for stopping by on the podcast. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much for having us.
Of course. And everyone, buy the Hard Times book and go visit the Hard Times website.
Yeah, the book, you can buy it at any Barnes & Nobles, a lot of indie bookstores, or go to thehardtimes.net/book. And we list out all the different places you can buy it. It's only $18 on Amazon, $17 at Walmart. Woo!
Yeah,
Perfect.
You can't. Christmas is coming up. Buy the book. That's it.
And Chris Rock, I know you're listening to this, so please go back and follow these guys
Yeah, please,
on
Chris.
Twitter.
Hurt my feelings.
Yeah, we do care about blind dogs. We don't just toss all blind dogs to the side while they're fucking on top of us. Thanks, Chris.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Auxoro. If you haven't already, please hit us with a 5-star rating and comment on Apple Podcasts. This helps us appear higher in searches, which means more people will find out about Auxoro. Other ways to get the word out is telling a friend about Auxoro, tagging us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or writing a blog post. We are a completely independent platform, and we're grateful for every listener who supports this podcast. Thank you for coming along for the ride, and I will see you guys next time.